Welcome to Trek Table, your live stream ritual.
Holding Trek space for Black, Indigenous, Brown, women of color,
queer or otherwise,
and our allies.
Hey, and welcome to the Trek Table, your Friday night weekly podcast holding the Trek space, as we say, for Black, Indigenous, Brown, women of color, queer or otherwise, and our allies. We're so excited to be here on our partner network, the Geekish Network, and welcome. It is Friday night. What's up to our friends already in this chat? I'm your host, Dayla, and today I'm holding Trek space for I'm Only Humanoid, Born to Make Mistakes.
And I am your co-host, Claudia. And today I am holding space for graceful negotiations.
And I'm one of your guest co-hosts, Navia, and today I'm holding space or Trek space for other people's feelings.
And I'm your co-host, Maya Mama, and today I'm holding Trek space for taking a pause before jumping in.
That was my pause.
Thank
I love
you.
it.
That
Thank
was
you
good.
all. And
That
friends
was
in the
good.
chat, we're wondering, what are you holding Trek space for today? There's a lot of things about this episode we're about to jump into. I do want to say welcome to the Trek table, and we do like to start by acknowledging that our teams for the Trek table are on the unceded land of the Tongva, the Chumash, the Quiche, the Ohlone, and Puyallup peoples, also the coastal Miwok peoples as well. We are grateful to the indigenous stewards of these lands, the ancestors who've come before, the folks who are here now, as well as those ancestors yet to come. And we invite all of our listeners and viewers to be an acknowledgement of the lands that you are on. And so we just take a breath for all the unceded lands of this earth. Yeah, let's go ahead, take a breath in and exhale.
Thank you all for joining us today as we hold Trek space for women of color here in front of our live digital audience on our partner network, Geekish. Or maybe you're catching us on a rebroadcast at the Trek table on YouTube or on our podcast.
All of our music for the Trek table is lovingly supported by our favorite Chiconics band, Quetzal. Follow them at Quetzal Music on Instagram and see our show notes or the chat for a link to their merchandise and more.
Yes, yes. And we want to welcome everybody to the Trek Table episode 53. I believe this is our 8th episode with the Geekish Network. We are so glad to be here. Thank you for showing up with this conversation with women of color as we dive headfirst deep. All the words are like leaving my mouth because we're jumping into episode 507 of Star Trek Discovery, the latest and the greatest. This episode is titled Erga. So if you're coming here for an unspoiled disco experience, oh, we love you so much, but we want to pause and invite you to go watch the episode and then come back and check out how we broke it down, because the spoiler zone is in full effect. We will be talking about spoilers from the first 7 episodes of Discovery Season 5 and all of the previous episodes. And because of who's at this Trek table today, basically anything in Star Trek is on spoiler zone, because we like to reference all the alls. So with all the love, if you need it to be different, pause, go watch your things, and then come back to us, because we really want to be engaged with you. We want to give you your loving warnings. So yeah, here we go.
And we are so glad that you are joining this Black, Indigenous, women of color Trek conversation. Hello and welcome. And so that we can build with each other, we would love to hear from you in the chat. How do you enter this conversation as a Star Trek fan? Are you Star Trek curious? Are you a newbie? Are you an OG Trekkie? Do you come from a Star Trekking family? Star Trek fam? Trek zaddy? Trek baby? Let us know in the chat.
Yes, and we're back today on Trek Table episode 53, diving into Star Trek Discovery, episode 507, Erga, written today by M. Raven Metzner and directed by John Dudakowski. So we want to say thank you to those artists and all of the creatives, all of the actors, all the special effects folks, the props, everybody who made this episode possible. I'm super excited for us to jump in. Today we're going to welcome back to the Trek Table Claudia, Maya Mama, and Navia, as you heard in our Holding Trek Space section. We're going to jump into this episode a couple of different ways. We're going to play popcorn recap and see if we can really get there in 2.5 minutes. Claudia's got some great Trek Table questions for us. Maya Mama's going to lead us through some interesting talks today about design. There's so much going on. We'll round that bend into thematics, weave it all together. We have a signal boost today. We'll always share our final thoughts, and then we'll end in gratitude. We want to welcome everybody who's assembled here at the Trek Table. Welcome to my co-hosts and to our tech director, Rodney. We also want to say welcome to our friends in the chat. So welcome. What's up to everybody there? Let's go around really quick and check in. Friends in the chat, go ahead and check in with us as well. I'll get us started. Name, pronouns, access check-in. How do you identify as a Star Trek fan? That's our basic, yeah? What's up? I'm Dayla. My pronouns are she, he, they, and Dayla. Visual check-in. I'm a mixed race Filipinx person. If you could see my t-shirt, it's an angry Asian man. Stay angry with the Asian lady holding a corporate white man over her head. And I'm sitting in front of Grudge and Michael Burnham's Ready Room. So I'm super excited about that. I'm a minutia loving Trekhead. That's how I describe myself. I'm definitely poly sci-fi. I'm definitely poly celestial. I love all the wars with stars. I love all the stars. Ooh, I just said I love all the wars. That's intense. That's not what I meant. I love all the stars, not the wars. But I do love Star Wars, Star Trek, Stargate, Battlestar Galactica, Firefly, Farscape. And I will just say that this show exists because I'm a disco head 100%. I love Star Trek Discovery. It is my primary sci-fi relationship. And I just feel like the lover who's been out of town has come home to hang out. And I get all the time with my long distance lover, aka Star Trek Discovery. So I'm in the best of moods in these 10 weeks. So that's me. I want to invite Claudia. Can I invite you to go next? Can you go ahead and check in? How you doing?
Hey, hello everyone. My name is Claudia. My pronouns are they, theirs. You can also use she, her. My visual description is I'm an African-American woman with a fabulous afro, and I'm wearing a Starfleet Academy shirt, and I am on the bridge of the original set. I think I'm in the spot where Spock usually is. My access check-in is my allergies is kicking, so I did replicate some tissues just in case I gotta blow my nose, but we're gonna try to do that while the awesome music of Quetzal is rocking out. And I come from a generational Star Trek family, but I consider myself a poly sci-fi fantasy kind of a gal. Books, movies, TV shows, comic books, everything.
Thank you. Super glad that you're here today, Claudia. Always. I'm excited to welcome our next guest host. You met her last week. I'm super excited that you're back, like jumping back in on the Trek table. What's up to Navya, a podcaster, creator, and who creates amazing content on TikTok. You can find her at that girl AYVAN. Welcome, Navya. Can I have you check in?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Navya. My pronouns are she, her. My visual description is I'm an Indian woman, a newly minted 30-year-old with long black hair, green, white, blue top, and I'm in my study, which has Star Trek memorabilia behind me. And I identify as a first-generation Trekkie.
Awesome. So glad to have you here, and all the stuff behind you, all the perspectives that you bring. So glad you're here. I'm gonna want to welcome back to the show. What's up, Maya Mama? So happy to have you back. Can I have you check in?
Yeah, hey, I'm Maya Mama. I use she, her pronouns. Visual description. I am a youngish looking mid-40s Black woman. I'm wearing a TNG era science uniform. Pretty, I guess, simple-ish makeup, shiny lip. My background is the bridge of the Enterprise D, and I'm from a generational Star Trek family, and I identify as non-hierarchical omni sci-fi. I love it all. It's all welcome.
And now this brings us to our final business. Before we jump into our discussions, we want to name our Trek table agreements.
Welcome to all who enter. Whether you're a newbie or you were raised in a Star Trekking family, welcome. We want to build this space together.
Whether you use Trek Table as your nerdy exploration or as a part of your self-care ritual, Trek Table is a weekly space to put down the world for a second and come into Trek space.
This is a space for Black, Brown, Indigenous, femmes of color to be a fan, a geek, a nerd, and explore the vastness that is the Star Trek multiverse.
Trek Table is also a place for our allies to come, engage, and explore as well. It's an opportunity for allies to hold space and focus on insights, perspectives, and experiences that we may not be familiar with or hear anywhere else.
And now that you're all here, we remind you that we seek to build an environment of mutual respect and listening. We understand that we're going to disagree, and that's actually part of the fun, but there's enough chaos happening in the world. Let's keep our phasers on stun.
Great. So let's go ahead and breathe in all those Trek Table agreements. Go ahead and take a breath in through your nose. and out through your mouth.
Woo. All right, friends, let's start with our first Trek Table question. Going to be posed to our Trek Table assembled here and to everyone who's participating in the Trek Table YouTube channel chat. What is your favorite tragic Star Trek couple? Sometimes they only last an episode, or maybe it's a film appearance. Maybe it was tragic because they died, or maybe it was just fated not to work out. But I'm curious. You get to choose. Favorite tragic Star Trek couple. Go. Welcome back. We are here with our question, our Trek Table question. That song was Matanzas by Quetzal. So the question is, who is your favorite tragic Star Trek couple? Sometimes it only lasts an episode or a film appearance. I am going to not guess Riker in any of the love things that Riker was in. We could have we could do a Trek Table, we could do a Trek Talk episode just on that. So you know who I'm going to guess? I'm going to guess tragic couple, Worf and Dax. Because they were just like, they were about to get married. I was so excited. Had they already gotten married? They were married,
they were
weren't
married.
they? They were fully married. I was super excited. I think they were about to have a baby. That's what I was
They
about
were
to get
thinking
excited
about it.
Yeah, that was so sad. That was so sad. That was tragic because they made such a good couple. That's what made it tragic. Worf and Dax were a good couple. Dela, I would like to ask you, tragic Star Trek romance, ill-fated. What you got?
I'm gonna go. The first thing that came to mind was Tasha Yar and Data from Next Generation because of their little tryst, because of I forget the reason why everybody was sex on the brain, but I love Yar was like, "Are you anatomically correct in all the ways?" Is one of the lines I remember. So I remember being like, "Wow, sex with cyborgs? Like what?" So yeah, I would say if Tasha had not succumbed, I would have rooted for another Tasha and Data part of their romance.
You know, at her funeral, he brought it up. Like they were close. It was a thing. It also came up during his trial for his humanity. That was like a deep moment for him, actually. That was a good choice. Navya, tragic couple.
For me, it's Picard and Laris. Not because they were a terrible couple. I thought they were great. She could go toe-to-toe with Picard, like better than anyone else could. But because the writers really failed her in the last season of Picard, their relationship was getting so good and then disappeared. She just disappears.
Like Laris was married to a guy, and then like in between seasons, he passes away. Suddenly she and Picard are about to date, but now he's in a completely other universe. Then they finally get together, and now why is he with Beverly Crusher? I don't like it.
Well, we don't know if he is. We do know, though, that his son is now more important than anything in the world. His adult son, who is on his own ship. And so now he will not be able to, in any way, shape, or form, be with I'm so sorry for jumping in there.
No, Maya Mama, I think that this is the energy we need. Let me know. Tragic couple, go, please.
Timothy and Lwaxana from the episode Half-Life of Star Trek, The Next Generation, season 4, episode 22, because they really, really cared about each other, and he only died because it was time.
No, it wasn't time.
No, it's
they
because
have weird
they had
rituals.
Decided it was time.
Yeah, unlike retirement. It exists. Retire off planet, y'all. You don't need to. I mean, I'm all for respecting another planet's, belief systems, but also I'm Team Lwaxana the entire way on this particular one.
Yeah.
F their planetary beliefs. Now, in the chat, they say Kira and Odo. Ooh. Now I wish that we could bring up people from the chat so I could get more details. Because why? Why was it tragic? Was it tragic because he left? Was it tragic because it wasn't tragic because he's a cop? That's right. So why was that tragic? That's a good answer. We also have Neelix and Kess. And again, my question is it tragic because she grew up and they broke up? Or was it tragic
because it ever happened? Has it
Because
ever
like
happened? That's
the
a
Yeah,
age
tragedy.
I
gap,
agree.
I'm just like the age gap is like, I mean, y'all
Ugh.
always come with the best answers. That was
Mhm.
Trek Table question number 1.
All right, all right. And that was Matanzas by Quetzal. Hallenbeck Ganso is the theme music for Trek Table Questions. And now we're going to try to play our popcorn recap of just a little love in the chat. Odo having to leave her to heal people was the tragedy there. So,
Yeah.
caretaker's got to caretake. That's a t-shirt I want to make. All right. So I'm not going to go off on that tangent in my mind because right now it's time for popcorn recap. And so many things happened in this episode.
Yes.
So the 4 of us are going to play this game collectively. We're going to have 2.5 minutes to tell chunklets of plot as we try to talk about the major storylines from this week's show. Trek Table, let's get ready. We're about to recap episode 507. Eriga, go ahead, take your breath in. Exhale. Rodney, can we have that time?
Okay, so Maul and Locke escaped the last episode, but they didn't get far. And now there's a distress signal that they put out there. Book offers to help with Maul and Locke, but Nan is doing special security. She deems him a security risk because last time she saw him, he shot the ship she was in. She is anti-Book, but she is pro-Burnham.
Oh, and they beam Maul and Locke straight into the medical bear because Locke is like close to death. But Culber's like, yo, I'm going to save his life with this old green refrigerator unit from the Dominion War, DS9 reference. But Maul refuses to leave Locke's side, and the Breen intercepted their SOS signal, so they are totally on their way.
Admiral Vance beams onto the Discovery. He has a conversation with Michael. He's like, "We got to go, jump away. We'll deal with the Breen." She's like, "Nah, dude, we need to stand our ground." So he agrees to stay.
Due to President Relic's absence, President Trina is acting Federation president, and in a meeting on what they want to do next with the Breen, First Officer Raynor is angry and adamant that the Breen won't negotiate, and he warns them to never turn their back on the Breen. Trina calls him out for being a xenophobic, and then is asked to step out, and then Michael is sent to get information on why the Breen are headed this way.
So then Tilly is going to leave to go protect her cadets, but then from the Breen, but then Paul stops her and because he has a clue to the progenitors. It's like this logo on a piece of metal, and that she has to help because the mission is the most important thing in the universe. She argues but agrees and goes to with Adira to help find the answer.
Oh, and over in sickbay, Michael is like going back and forth with Maul and Locke and guesses that Locke is a direct descendant of the Emperor. And he's like, oh, I hate my people. Just spit in my uncle's face when you see him. Eh.
Meanwhile, Tilly and Adira are talking with Zora. They're trying to figure out this progenitor clue. It's an ancient Beta Z manuscript. There's no copy. No one else is alive. But hey, is anybody on the ship able to deal with ancient manuscripts? Jet Reno.
While prepping the ship for the Breen's visit, Reno tells Tilly and Adira that she used to be a smuggler of ancient manuscripts, and in addition to being a bartender and other jobs for Starfleet.
Michael says that it's that the ship from the big time bug cycle thing, that the Breen destroyed Starfleet Academy, and then the Breen leader, the Primarch, demands that they give him Locke, and then they negotiate for an hour by lying.
And then Stamets, he's looking for the location, right, related to the clue. And Book comes in, he's like, they won't let me do nothing. Can I help? And because he's not allowed to help with anything else.
And that is 2.5 minutes.
Man.
We're robust recappers.
Yes.
That's pretty good.
That's what our nickname could be, robust recappers. All right, so we're gonna go through the rest of this plot really quick just to make sure everybody knows what's the what. So Raynor and Michael talk, and he confides in her. She was like, "I read your file. Like, what's up?" And so he tells her a different Breen leader ran his planet Kelleran and actually killed his family. So now we really understand why he is the way he is and all of the tragedy he's been carrying. And then as he's telling this story, Michael has an aha moment and is like, "Oh, I know what to do now."
Reno advises them to go to the Eternal Gallery and Archive, a social knowledge library on the ship that constantly changes location for safety. And the metal clue they found was a library card for that particular item.
because it isn't hard when you got your library card. Tarina is a badass negotiator. So they bluff that they will deliver to a different Primarch, that they know that the Breen want Locke to firm up their claim to the throne, and they succeed, and the Breen leave.
Unfortunately, Maul and Locke don't know that, and they're desperate to escape from the uncle. So Locke's like, I know what I'll do. I'll overdose on these drugs, and then that'll make you take the force field down, and Maul, you can escape. And then she fights, and she shoots Skullbar after they do some hand-to-hand contact, and then she fights Non, and she escapes.
And then Michael's like, "What's? Oh man! All right, I'm gonna go back to the Breen Primarch and ask for a doctor." And so the next thing we know, they beam in to save him.
And then Maul escapes, which causes the ship to go on lockdown, and Book realizes that it's Maul and he tries to help, but Paul is like, wait, and you need to do more important things like solve this mystery first. And then Book uses his empathetic powers to help them get the final clue from the Bajoran symbol, and he sees plasma storms, explosions, eternity, and eternal.
The Primarch is mad, big mad. He accused Discovery of killing Locke. Dr. Culber and everyone else explains what happened, but the Breen don't care how it happened.
Oh, and Maul tells the Breen about the progenitor technology after, like Locke dies. And so Maul tells Breen all about the progenitor technology, and she shows that she's connected to Locke by marriage, and the Breen says that the price for them to leave is going to be Maul. They're like, we'll take Maul.
So meanwhile, Starfleet goes back in its corner, Vance, Trina, Michael, and obviously Maul is going to try to use the Breen and try to bring Locke. She's going to use the they figure out, oh, you want to use the technology so you can bring Locke back to life. And so Michael thinks she can find a way to get Maul to join her. Book thinks it's wrong. He's sitting there again, like, why am I in another circle where you guys all disagree with me? And then they decide they're going to give Maul to the Breen, and they let the shield go, and Maul is beamed to the Breen. And that, yes, and not Bajoran, it was Beta Z. You know,
that's what it was. Yeah.
Beta Z,
yeah.
yes. Yeah. I missed that in the So yes, and you know what, y'all? That was popcorn recap.
We got there.
Ooh-wee, I love that song. Welcome to Discovery Design. We've seen some beautiful and amazing design elements in this episode of Discovery. So let's dish. Dayla, I would like to start with you. The Breen are a big element to this episode. Do you have things you wanna dish with on the Breen?
For sure. Design-wise, I mean, I was a fan of the Breen spaceport that we got a couple weeks ago when we first learned the backstory, the meet cute for Maul and Locke. I will say the Breen Dreadnought was super scary. Is that the name of the size of ship? It was super huge, and like I feel like I've always heard Dreadnought in space context, and so this was just, oh, that's super scary, you know. So I definitely saw that. I was fascinated by the weapons that look a little bit like tiki torches, but they're not. And then certainly watching Culber be like, I don't know enough about Breen biology. And so watching the Breen medical person beam over and be able to just be like opening up their kit. And so, yeah, just the parallelness of like civilization and like just seeing more of this green, black design aesthetic that we saw on their ship in their uniforms. So I was just really struck by that this time as a starter.
Well, yeah, and I mean they're green and the lights are green and they glow green. They're sort of bioluminescent. Claudia, would you like to just carry this conversation on the Breen on?
Yeah, because I'm thinking about, the Breen, we've seen the Breen on a couple of different Star Trek franchises, right? And their old design was super awkward. Like they've always been leather daddies. They've always been like black leather, full mask. There's an
Mhm.
aesthetic that's a little bit about like it's a little dominatrix energy, right? But it feels like their costumes have changed. There's more room to breathe. It felt like the performers were more comfortable in the entire Breen getup. I liked that for them. I also loved. I'm changing the topic now away from the Breen.
Yes.
I loved how when Stamets was like trying to find like what's the Beta Z location, and like there was like a holographic representation of all of the stuff, and it was really useful because I was like it helped when Book was like, oh wow, this is a big project. I'm like, oh yeah, the joke landed. I liked that. And then the last thing I really liked, this is silly, but I love that little metal library card. And I really hope we get to go to the space library next episode. But that library card was really cute. I love that.
I love library cards in general. Now I'd like to shift to like we talked about the dreadnought, which was very scary, but right next to that was this pretty little like a Christmas ornament. That's what I thought of it as.
Yeah.
Avia, did you have opinions on Starfleet headquarters?
Yeah, I thought it was absolutely beautiful. Was that the same? That was not the same headquarters we've seen previously, right?
Oh, it's the same one. Yeah.
Is it the same one? I've just never noticed.
I think it's a little prettier after
Yeah.
the last bang up that happened. I think that they made it looked nicer as far
Yeah.
as I was concerned. I was like, oh, that got a
It looks-
show.
Yeah.
Like a glow up.
I don't know how practical it is though. It did look very practical, but man, it looked beautiful.
I love the
For sure.
lighting though. Their lighting is so useful. You know when there's an emergency because all of the lights change. It's so great.
And they're not spending as much time in this season showing us all of the programmable matter that just kind of appears. You know, sometimes they're like walking into a room where there's no floor, and then the floor, like a gangway appears or something, and then like a table appears. So yeah, it reminds me, I've made this joke before, but I'm gonna say it again. It does remind me a little bit of like Gandalf's like wand, you know, like the spiral on the top.
That's how they was with the Breen. You shall not pass.
But it also is a lot like every tower in the Neverending Story as well. Like I was kind of expecting that dun 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 song to be playing.
And maybe Falcor like coming around the corner, like, Atreyu. Sorry.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, now one of the things that I noticed, and I didn't notice it the first time through. Noticed it the second time through, but all of the officers that are in the security officers and Culber are wearing like kind of puffy coats, but they're the same colors as their uniform. So like Culber's wearing this like white puffy coat, and the other guys are wearing their black puffy coats. And I don't know why, I just loved it so much. And also like that man can wear a coat.
Yes, he can.
Yes, he can.
I was just like, dang, like that he's just wearing a winter coat. It's just, and I'm like, thank you for that. Okay, and that was Disco Design.
And that brings us to our final Trek Table question. Again, posed here to our friends at the Trek Table assembled here, and then to everybody else in our Trek Table YouTube channel chat. Reno had so many jobs. Are we surprised that people had different jobs before they went to work for Starfleet? Here's my question. What kind, because we've done this before where we pick the kind of job we would want if we were working on a Starfleet vessel. Here's my question. You're free to go anywhere in the Star Trek universe. What job do you want to have? Welcome back. So here we are with Trek Table question number 2. Reno had so many jobs that were mentioned in this episode. They were a smuggler. They had a pass as a bartender. In fact, it sounded like they were still moonlighting as a bartender, even as they were actively acting as an engineer. That's amazing. So here's my question. If you could have any job in a Star Trek universe, not necessarily going to bring you even into contact with Starfleet, what job would you want to have? There's so many options. I'm going to start with you, Maya Mama. Maya Mama, what job would you have in a Star Trek future universe?
So like, I wouldn't be employed because I'm not about that. But I
Right.
would be, my job, the thing I would like to do would be like a holo
Mhm.
novelist, but like AO3. Like, but like, and then
Fanfic?
also,
Are you doing future fanfic?
yeah. And I also want to live on Earth because Earth rarely gets attacked. Like when it does happen, it's like a really big deal, but like rarely does it actually
Mhm.
happen. So I'm gonna live on Earth, and make hollow fan fiction novels and have a replicator.
Okay, I like this. Also, just
Mhm.
the detail of where you're going to live, that
Mhm.
matters because, you know, depending on where you live, there are different jobs available there.
Mhm.
I'm gonna ask you, Dela, what job would you have in a future Star Trek universe?
Okay, I have been wondering this for a long time. Does Starfleet have a band? Like, I really am wanting to know, like, where are the artists? Like, I know artists
Mhm.
exist in this future, but like, even the Navy has a band. Like, the Starfleet paramilitary, like, sciencey place doesn't believe in the sonic goodness of artists.
Well, we saw people playing instruments
Mhm.
on Star Trek Voyager. You know, the Doctor was always singing.
That's true. But I don't think I've ever seen, like, when we relaunched Starfleet Academy and in this from season 3 to now in Disco, there's not a band. There's not a so I know like on the Next Generation, like the jokes that we heard in Lower Decks about, they're and we saw in episodes of Next Generation, they're doing plays for each other and all that, and Will Riker plays the trombone. And so yeah, so I think I would really want to be an artist in the future because I'm really curious about the role of artists in future worlds where genocide and war and oppression are not supposedly things, even though we're confronting them in these futures. So, what is the role of artist agitator? I don't know. So, I kind of would
This
want to be
is
myself, but like in the future.
that was
Yeah,
my
yeah.
answer. Like my reaction was, oh, arts and social justice. I would like I feel silly that I didn't think of, oh right, what's the futuristic aspect of your arts and social justice? But I figured I'd be the kind of artist where, I don't know if I was based on Earth, I would be doing the kind of art that was being blasted to all of the other planets to spread the word about the plight of the Bajorans. I would be out there being like, no, you don't
Oh
understand.
yeah.
We have to like while the Bajorans were in trouble, like I'm pretending that I'm doing this during the time right before Deep Space Nine. That's the kind of art I would have been doing,
Like
agitating
the
art.
2360s.
That's
For
what I'm
sure.
talking about. Exactly. 2360 style. I would have been agitating and protesting for the Bajoran people. I love your answer, Dayla, because I'm like, oh, you've got me thinking. Because now I'm like, is there anybody? Because we saw a lot of characters who were like, I play the piano and I'm a Starfleet engineer. Is there anyone who's just a musician? Are there any just musicians out there? Um, Navia, I'm curious, what job would you like to have? You can have any job in the entire Star Trek universe. What job is it?
I want to be an aide to an ambassador. I don't think I'm brave enough to like go face to face with a Breen, but I'd be more than happy to help someone out and like do research on cultures, travel around, and just get to do the research and the learning part because that's really what I enjoy.
That's a dangerous job. Do you remember
It's
on
true.
Star Trek: The Next Generation that character who was played by Howie Seago, who's a deaf performer, and he had 3 different aides because he was the ambassador. He had 3 aides, and they got. I'm
Oh,
just
that's
letting
true.
you know. You just picked a
They
dangerous.
met the space
travel.
koala.
The travel is going to be amazing. You're going to
Yeah.
learn so much.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
Can I jump in
Yo,
here and share a little bit from the chat? Because the
please,
chat's excited about
yes.
that. All right. What's up to Courtney and Paul right now in the chat? Courtney says, Reno is living the artist life on the starship already. So I'm like, yeah, true. She's making connections out of black licorice into like, comm devices. And then Courtney says, I always wanted to be the holodeck cruise director designing deck
Ooh.
travel. for tired officers. So yes,
Sounds nice.
there it is. So yeah, and a lot of I guess there was a band on Enterprise D. Paul in the chat says something that was on. I don't know what they had one. I don't know what the one is, but yeah, definitely. And then Data played violin. So the chat's also excited about this question. So great job, everybody.
Y'all, we always have the most fun. I ask y'all the most ridiculous questions, and you provide the most entertaining answers. And that was Trek Table question number 2.
Yes. And we've come, I mean, the conversation is just flowing, and time keeps on going. So here we are already at the thematics portion of our Trek Table, episode 53, as we talk about Star Trek Discovery 507, Eriga. And, as I think about the thematics in this episode, we've kind of started to talk about it in a couple of different ways. But I think I was just really struck by, we're finally getting to see what Ray or Commander Rayner's where his brusqueness and his tenacity is not the word I'm thinking about, but his aggressive responses to the Breen in these meetings. And so Michael finally goes and does the research work to understand, oh, you have trauma with this community of beings, and that's, oh my gosh, and like your whole world was taken over. And so Michael finds a way to spin it and allow us to benefit from Raynard's experience. And then it also, I think this episode really confronts, like, as I think about like the way in which, I'll speak for myself, sometimes I feel like I operate in equity and diversity and inclusion spaces, and the violence or the harm is often verbal, but it's not physical. And so I was just really struck in this episode about, what do you do when you come to a situation where the community that you're trying to engage with has violent opposition and is going to use violence and is going to use strength and power in a different way that's than just the strength and power that we see Tarina and Vance and Burnham roll up with when we get to these negotiations. So I just feel like there's often these like, oh, the tra-la-la of the people who are trying to make us all feel good. But here's like a real instance and a real moment of push and of conflict, and that cannot just be solved by a really great Michael Burnham speech. And so I just kind of opened it up like, yeah, there's just so much. And I found myself like wanting to try to get Locke to like be like, dude, you could be the homie. So yeah, so there's a lot of things to talk about. Book also had some great stuff in this episode, and then there's stuff with Book at the end. So and then Tira and Adira, Tilly, Adira, Reno also give us stuff. So I just want to, and then Paul. So I just open up all the alls of this episode. Navi, I'm going to come to you first. I'm just curious, as you were experiencing this episode, what kinds of stuff were you thinking about resonating with this week?
I love the leader that Michael is becoming. At the beginning of the meeting in the episode, we saw her like kick Rayner out and be like, you're being disruptive, get out of here. But then as a leader, she took time to do research, figure out exactly why Rayner was having such a reaction, and she really empathized with him. And I think that's such an important skill for leaders to have, and it's something leaders in our world don't really have that most of the time. And it's something that, all of us as leaders should definitely that's a skill we all need.
For sure. If we say we're going to operate out of a place of empathy, let us see that empathy actually move your action point, right? Yeah, I definitely hear that. Claudia, I'm going to come to you next. Curious about what was resonating for you in this episode.
I was not enjoying the entire gift of the Magi aspect of Locke accidentally offing himself. I'm soups annoyed by it. They're just making the worst choices for themselves. I recognize they have no reason to believe that the crew of Star Trek Discovery can manifest miracles. They haven't seen the previous 4 seasons, but still, it is so annoying. And their lack of hope guarantees that they make bad choices and that the results end in losses. And I want to kind of vibe on what you were saying, Navia, where I'm like, oh, you can watch all of Discovery and get the best leadership like lessons of like, oh, these are great ways to like practice empathetic, conscious leadership. I also feel like it's a useful perspective for people who are fighting for causes to go, oh, what are the tactics you should be willing to use?
For sure, for sure. And as we continue to think about this train of thought, I'm curious, Maya Mama, your thoughts on this episode and things that stuck out to you in all of this.
Well, this season has a lot of ties into Deep Space Nine, because even the saying, the Romulan saying, "Never turn your back on a Breen," is a direct quote from the episode, season 5, episode 15 of Deep Space Nine, by Inferno's Light. And the Kelleran were first introduced to us in Deep Space Nine as well. And so I'm really enjoying these like little homages, little things. Ray really stinks at trusting and talking to people.
Yeah.
But it also seems to be like literally everybody's fatal flaw is this complete lack of communication. I appreciated Michael praising, doing some positive affirmation type of stuff with Ray being like, "Thank you for talking to me about this," because like she knows what, like, I got a lot of trauma about this thing looks like, because like literally everyone on her crew and everyone that she ever meets has this like big scary trauma thing that they don't want to talk about, but they always do. My brain keeps going to this tit for tat process of the way that that everyone is treating each other. Maul and Locke are untrustworthy. They're afraid. They've never had any, because everyone has always treated them badly except for each other. So they don't know. They don't even know. They don't understand how to talk to other people, because other people are always the bad people. It's the same problem last season with the 10C. They're not speaking the same language. And that's what Michael's big thing is, really, is communicating with other species and other people. And that's what I'm seeing a lot of. Okay, I'd said a lot.
For sure. And I really appreciate you reminding us of that Romulan saying that was brought up in the episode. And Paul in the chat is like, yep, I remember that episode. So yeah, extra references for folks to go back and watch that DS9 episode. And I realized, I think I've seen the Kelleran in there, but I don't know. Yeah, I got to go back and find the Breen in DS9. So they're in DS9?
Yeah, they almost fully murdered the doctor and who's our favorite engineer that always has a horrible time?
O'Brien.
Yeah.
I love that we're like, ooh,
again.
Again. Star Trek loves a theme. So I feel like there's all this. I do want to open up some more conversation, and I feel like I want to jump into something else, but I want to come back to you, Navia, and see other things that you're thinking about this episode. Curious about the Tilly, Adira, Reno adventures. Any thoughts on that, or on the Book and Paul?
I'm so glad they bring Reno back. I appreciate her level of sarcasm. I think this is a level of sarcasm we haven't really seen in Trek, at least that I can recall, and I just appreciate it so much.
For sure. And I'm like, of course you had a job once where you pretended to work on ancient artifacts, but you were really paying attention, right? Claudia,
yes, like that.
Thoughts about either Reno or or other parts. Yeah.
Well, I think I want to jump back to what Maya was talking about with Maul and Locke. And information helps you make good choices. And in this episode, we saw a bunch of areas where it's like, oh, like if Nan had just been willing to say yes to Book's offer, all the bad things wouldn't have happened. Why? Because Book is able to access information other people can't access, because Book speaks the language of feelings and love. That's why Book is able to like read the card and be like, oh yeah, here's the information you needed, Stamets. I'm feeling it. If you could shut up for a minute. But also, I'm thinking about how in the first season, because I do think that a lot of like this season is making references that are forcing us to look back at the first season, what did that guy say? Context is for kings. He's like,
Mhm.
oh, his argument was the little people don't need all the information. The only people who need the information are the people who are going to make stuff happen. And I go, no, context is for everyone. If Maul and Locke had any of the context, I mean, they needed to trust what they were being told, but if they had any of the context, they would have made other choices. Also, can I just say shout out to the Breen for actually, it turns out I agree with the Breen on one thing. Intention is nothing. Outcome is everything. In diversity, equity, inclusion trainings, we often talk about how it's sweet that you had your intentions, but it's actually the impact on people that matters. And I was like, Breen, I might be referencing you in a current workshop. Who knew?
For sure, for sure. Oh my gosh, my mama, curious things you want to pick up on this here.
So Claudia, yes, you're saying that like they're doing a lot of call back to like how characters were previous. And we see in this episode that Paul Stamets is super mission focused. He's trying to keep everyone else on mission as well. And I think it's really important that like we see a Paul Stamets that sees the big picture. Because that's a huge change. It's a huge change to the way he was. I mean, like we're at 5, so like end of season 3, when he almost the end of everything, because he was about to give himself over to Osira to possibly save Adira and Culber. And the thing is it wouldn't have worked. And he had to come to terms with the fact that like Michael kicked him off that ship, put him in an escape pod, and she was right. And he was really angry. And he had to go through a bunch of growth that we did not really see. And that's okay. Because we know he got there. And then one thing I wanted to say that Maul is a lot like Michael. And Book keeps making that kind of comparison. Yeah. And similarly, because Maul is her own worst enemy. Because all they needed to do was just trust them for like 10 minutes. Like 10 minutes. If they had said, all right, we'll give you 10 minutes. We'll give you until you're done negotiating with the Breen. You tell us how that worked out, and then we'll decide if we're gonna, accidentally suicide. I mean, I don't know. It's just, I was yelling. I was.
We all were.
We all were.
Yeah.
We were rooting for you.
For sure. Yeah. We were about you all. Book finally had a sibling. Like, come on. Like
America's Top Model style. We were rooting for you lot.
Yeah. And I guess as we close out, I feel like I so appreciate this set of conversations, because I've just been thinking about like, I do appreciate thematically and plot-wise that Book's empath abilities were utilized in this episode. Like, we haven't seen him be able to, help the ship jump because he doesn't put his fingers in the mani-pedi gel anymore, because Stamets is still doing that. And because Book has lost his ship, I've missed his ship. I miss the interior of his ship and the naturalness we get inside of a space environment. But the thing that I really appreciated was like, yes, finally, here is a way for Book to connect. And the fact that Stamets is the one who figured that out, I was like, okay, so my fear of Stamets being, if we have to have a spirit versus science moment between the husbands, I'm not as afraid anymore. I was afraid a couple of episodes ago, like, are we about to boil down to Stamets is going to be the scientist and annoying forever? I love my science fam, but sometimes, anybody in an extreme position is extreme. So I feel like watching Paul use his ability to sway the team, to get Tilly to stay, to get Book to stay on task, and to help solve this other problem as the diplomacy is working, as the Federation is doing its federationing. I just really appreciated that episode. And so it was just a really beautiful opportunity to see, to watch this crew manifest multiple things at the same time. Right. And so, yeah, go ahead.
So this made me think of a point in season 1 when Paul does a bunch of, they do a bunch of leaps, a bunch of jumps to map an area.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And it's like Paul has done that, but with people. He understands why people need to be where they are now.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
like in a way, he can see the the mycelial network that is connecting everyone outside of there. So he knows why, like, Tilly, you need to be here because you need to do this thing. Your people are going to be fine, and you know that. Book, you can't do anything except stay here and help me. You are gonna be in the way. And you know that because you were just in the way earlier. And Michael gave you a look. We all
Mhm.
saw that, where she was like, I'm not going to yell at you because we don't have time for that, but we saw that. And so I'm just really loving, like, Paul's all grown up, and even with the spirituality, he still sees, like, the universe is so big and so vast. And season 1, Paul never would admit that there is something beyond what can be actualized and factualized. And I'm really loving Paul.
Mhm.
He's really growing up. Really
Aw.
grown up.
Yeah.
He's really grown
Mm.
up.
Yes. And I have to say, Navia, every time we see you in frame, and you move a little, we could see Rafi and Michelle Hurd.
Yes.
And I'm just like, hi, Rafi. Hi. How's your girlfriend? You guys all right? You haven't Starfleet love? I hope so. So yeah, no, all the things, and just, yeah. And then the last thing thematically, which I know is not happening, and we kind of reference this, but like, yeah, if anybody can relate to having trauma about a species, we have Burnham and her life experience with the Klingons. And so I
Yeah.
will just say I had a little mini panic. Please tell me she's not going to start another war. Like, did
Yeah.
we just had an episode where she went back in time and was like able to tell her mutineer self, like, don't, or, Kelleran or somebody was able to tell Ray told her, like, you're gonna grow into an amazing captain. And not that she's not being an amazing captain in this episode, but I think what it's helping me really think about is the reason why we talk about Star Trek all the time, is that Starfleet and the Federation are imperfect creations of imperfect beings, and that really there is no perfection, but that there is this struggle despite the odds, despite the not knowing, despite the fear, that somehow these beings can find, like, that's really, to me, the magic of universe, is like, can we find a way to move past the fear and move past our hurt and come to a different place. But I know I say that from a positionality of, not having survived a Breen assault or a Klingon assault or a human assault, and or in the case of Kwejan, the 10C assault. So hurting people, healing people. I'm seeing it again show up here, and I'm just, it's a lot of feelings, friends.
Yeah.
All right. So we had a chat. Thank you all for letting me kind of just go on this little thematic road for a little bit. Thank you all so much for your insights and your reflections and your reactions, because that was our thematics for episode 507, Erga.
We want to give a special shout out to the Trek Table friends assembled in the chat today while we were recording this episode. Y'all have been completely amazing. I loved your answers to our questions. Hey, y'all, do you want to get in on the future chats? Join us next Friday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific and 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, when we'll be talking about Star Trek Discovery episode 508. It will start streaming on Paramount Plus on Thursday, May 16th.
We strive to hold space for Black, Indigenous, Brown, women of color. Here are some resources that amplify and highlight the work of women of color content creators, community builders, and world shapers.
All right, I'm going to share one this week that's a little close to home for me. One of the artists that I am in legacy with, and I've actually taken over work at her company. There's an amazing new documentary about Nobuko Miyamoto. And if you don't know about Nobuko Miyamoto, when she was 3 years old, she was imprisoned by the US government as part of the Japanese American incarceration during World War II. She was taken to the Santa Anita racetrack here locally in Los Angeles on Tongvaland. She was imprisoned there for several months, and went on after they got out of camp to have her mom put her in dance classes. She was in the original Broadway movie West Side Story. She was also in King and I. And then she went on to become one of the very first Asian American folk musicians and get on the Mike Douglas or Mike Wallace show in the early 70s, and then was part of the Black Panther movement and social justice movements all over the country. And so if you are in the Bay Area on Ohlone land or coastal Miwok land, and you can get there this Saturday at the San Francisco MoMA Phyllis Wattis Theater at 5 o'clock and 5:11, they'll be showing this documentary called Nobuko Miyamoto, A Song and Movement by filmmakers Tad Nakamura and Win Lee. And then it's going to go to Chicago on Yuri and Malcolm's birthday, 5/19. It'll be at the Gene Siskel Film Center. It'll also tour to Houston, and it eventually in the fall will come out and we'll promote it. But if you have a chance and you're looking for real world women of color inspiration, Nobuko's story is amazing. She also has a book out called Not Your Butterfly and multiple songs and albums. So I just want to lift her up as an OG content creator back in the day before we all had cell phones and pagers and computers and email, and just part of that generation of elders who were organizing in the 60s and the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and up until now. She's 84. So just may we all continue to live our vibrancy and be inspired by not just Nobuko, but all women of color, folks who and our allies who are out there doing the do. So I just want to hold that up today. Thank you.
And if you know of a woman of color content creator, community builder, or world shaper that you think we should amplify, please drop it in the chat or reach out to us via our Instagram at Trek Table.
All right, as is the case at the end of every episode, we like to go around, even though we've had a lot of time to talk about our thoughts. I feel like we all want to have a little final thought. And I'm going to go first because I feel like mine is a little bit sad or disturbing, and I just feel like we don't want to leave with the sadness. All right. My final thought on this episode is I am reminded of Book's father appearing to him in the delirium, and Book's father saying to Book, she will have to make choices between you and the Federation, and she's always going to choose the Federation. And I felt myself watching Book at the end of this episode as he's sitting in that circle and he's watching Trina and Vance and Burnham, and I think Rainer's in that circle too. And they're all talking about Maul and they all want to give her to the Breen. And Book is just like, what are you talking about? I can't believe it. And so my final thought is really a question. Should Book maybe leave Burnham because she is not, I don't know. I feel so sad about this because he is my favorite potential partner of hers. But I don't know. I'm worried about Book. I'm worried about who's watching out for Book. I know that the space daddies do, and they all have bonds. I know he's got bonds on this ship. But I'm worried that the end of this episode will propel him. You know, he's still getting over all those bad decisions after he lost his world and he befriended Tarka and all that. And so I just have to go first because I'm just like, ooh, my heart feels sad. I don't know how. I can't even get it all out. But so I'm just wondering, does he need to find a different place? Because I don't know if Michael is the best person for him, which makes me super sad. All right. That's my sad. Let's take a breath and exhale. Okay. Thank you for letting me go there. I want to say we've had an awesome episode, and I'm going to come to you next, Navia, because I've just so appreciated your insights and your reflections with us, and you being game to join us and trying to recap this episode, all the alls. I'm curious, what are your final thoughts about this episode?
I'm even more concerned for Maul and Locke after this episode. I've seen interviews with the actors who play Maul and Locke, and they've said this is a Bonnie and Clyde kind of story, and we all know how that ends. So now I'm even a little bit more afraid for those two.
So even beyond what happened
Yeah.
to Locke at the end of this
Yes.
episode, where right
Yep.
now he has died, he's
Mm-hmm.
in death state. Okay. And I'm curious if people want to find you or follow you outside of Trek Table. Is there a way that folks can find you or follow you in the world?
Yeah, I'm on TikTok and Instagram, and my handle is that girl Avon, and Avon is spelled Ayvan.
Awesome. So we want to encourage folks, if you haven't already, go find Navia on TikTok and on Instagram, get more amazing content, and all the things. All right. I'm gonna take another breath because all the things we're mourning a little bit. Also, it's episode 7 of 10.
Yeah.
I don't want it to end. I'm having all those feels too. All right. Maya Mama, I'm gonna come to you next. Thoughts, questions, final thoughts?
Sorry, I muted myself because I was making sounds every time I was doing a lot of like, affirmative things.
Yeah.
So I have issues with Book as well. Book always seems to respect people's boundaries until he thinks he knows better, because I want to say something really quick. Like, everyone else can have an opinion over what Maul wants to do, but Maul is the one who said that she wanted to go with the Breen.
Yep.
And the Federation had no business saying no. They can't say no. And neither can Book. Book can't be like, but we're like family. Like, the only way would have been to take away her agency. She just lost someone very, very important to her, and that would have been the worst thing to do. And Michael knew that. It's one of those things where Book's issues are that he will respect boundaries, but he still doesn't trust Michael. So it's not that like they're going different ways. It's that Michael's way isn't wrong. It's actually probably the right way, that he needs to respect and let Maul come to him. He needs to give her a place to land, maybe, but I think that's the big issue with Book, is that he's like Locke. He's just he's like, oh, the most important thing is the thing that I love. And I will stomp and destroy anybody who gets in the way of the thing that I love. And he doesn't think about how those actions affect other people. And I can see it already popping in his brain all episode, that he's ready to throw away Maul's rights and right to choose over what he thinks is best for her. And that's not okay. He's got to get over that. He doesn't know better. He does not know better. He needs to get there. But that's my last thought.
All right.
I mean, I love that man, though.
I mean, all right. So let's take a breath for that as we think about all those things. And exhale. All right, Claudia, I'm going to come to you. I'm curious, what are your final thoughts for this episode? So many different things we've been talking about today.
I've got 2 genre savvy observations. One's going to feel super random, but the other one I think helps close this out cleanly. So the first one is, poor Nan. Poor Nan. Nan is got the same problem that Worf had, where they wanted to show the big bad was super bad. So they'd be like, let's have them beat up our best fighter. And all it does is, you've never seen Nan win a fight.
Yeah.
Nan be getting her butt kicked by everybody, by computer program people, by future people, by past people. Now, by this little skinny girl. I'm like, how is Maul kicking your butt so good? So I just wanted to say genre savvy observation, poor Nan. But here's my second genre savvy observation. I'm guessing, I'm forecasting. This is our first time seeing this. So for folks listening in the future to the podcast, you might be laughing your butt off at me, but I think they're going to bring Locke back to life.
I agree.
Thank you. What have they been talking about this entire time? This progenitor tech can bring the dead back to life. I feel like that's how it's going to end. So we won't have a Bonnie and Clyde type ending. We'll have I don't know. Is there a story where you think that your tragic couple is not going to be, but then one of them gets brought back to life? Whatever story that.
Tangled. Remember that happened in Tangled? You guys remember that? That happened in Tangled.
I watched Tangled once, but I'm going to believe Maya Mama. Just like Tangled.
I feel like Never Ending Story. We already brought it up, but
Oh
like,
yeah, that happened too. Yeah.
There
the
we
place,
go.
that the nothing was
Yeah.
eating comes back.
Yeah. This is gonna be just like the end of the Never-Ending Story, where instead of like a sad, the
Artex comes
dog.
back.
Yes, our text is gonna come back to life. Exactly. Instead of the sad, like Artex, we're gonna have him come back to life. It'll be beautiful. It'll just be like Moonchild. That's exactly what's gonna be happening with Locke.
Was that his mom's name? Moonchild?
Yeah,
Yes,
it was
yeah, it
Moonchild.
was.
That's what he yelled. That is what
Dude,
he
I
yelled.
did not understand. Thank you for solving the eternal life mystery of my tweenhood. Is what is the mom's name? All right. Look, y'all, thank y'all for tuning in as the Trek Table like dived into not only our last thoughts, but gave us some, I think, really interesting vector points of like, we're starting to place all those bets of what's going to happen at the end of the Star Trek Discovery season finale. So we're here. But for now, those were our final thoughts on Star Trek Discovery episode 507, Eriga. Yes, yes. And just like that song Witness by our favorite band, Quetzal, we here at the Trek Table can pay witness to all of the people who help us make it happen. We always want to end our show on gratitude. This podcast would not happen without the village of support. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you all in the chat, in the views later, for joining us here at the Trek Table. And we want to say that if you want to learn more, you can find out inside scoops, Trek Table questions, and sign up for our mailing list at trektable.com.
Trek Table graphics provided by our original graphics partner, Arthur Wong, and our new partner, Digital Click, a SoCal-based boutique marketing and design agency. Learn more about them at www.digitalcliq.com.
Like and subscribe. Follow the Geekish Network on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. For podcast subscriptions, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app. Join Trek Table next Friday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific and 9:30 p.m. Pacific Eastern. Or sorry, no Pacific. I said Pacific twice, but just the one time. Here on the Geekish Network.
Like and subscribe to us on Instagram at Trek Table and YouTube. You can find the Trek Table podcast on Apple, Google, and wherever you get your podcasts.
And finally, I want to say thank you so much to this Trek Table assembled today. Thank you for holding down this ritual with us. Thank you so much, Claudia Alec, Maya Millslow, and Navia Mala. I'm Allison De La Cruz, or De La, and I just want to say thank you to everybody at the table today for sharing your insights and thoughts as we continue to move through this season and all these feelings. I want to say thank you to everybody in our chat. It was so great to have you all. Dittos to Paul in the chat. Thanks, Courtney, for being there with us. And we also want to say, last but not least, thank you so much to our technical director, Rodney, for holding it down for us today. Thank you, Rodney.
Trek Table executive producers, Allison De La Cruz, and our partners at the Geekish Networks. Thank you so much to Rodney Kahuo and Charles Babs.
Yes, yes. And deepest gratitude always to our content partners at Calling Up Justice. Thank you so much. Deeply love and appreciate y'all.
Trek Table is a service mark of De La Projects, LLC.
We want to thank you for joining us at the Trek Table today. We're getting ready to close this ritual for today by taking one more breath. We took a lot of breaths today, but let's go ahead and breathe in one more time. Take your breath and exhale. Don't worry, after you watch episode 508, we're going to be here because we are holding Trek space for you till next time. See you next Friday.